Number 10.
Stayed on you, Jesus, because the peace it brings is worth fighting for.
Number 9.
My life, oh Lord.
Number 7.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. The one and only God. You are God.
Number 6.
I will do anything.
Number 5. Number 4.
Trust in the name of the Lord.
Number 3.
Did you help us sing this tonight? Say you're amazing. Shout you're amazing.
Number 2.
Join Lady T, Art the Baptist, Robert Reno, and myself as we play the best in gospel music on the D. Curtis Randall Show, Saturdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Central on urbanbroadcastmedia.com. You be
now boarding the McCain Train with Reverend Rick and author Brenda McCain. They're bringing hot and powerful topics regarding relevant issues on marriage, relationships, and life-changing family topics. And they are funny, engaging, energetic, and they bring real talk that reaches beyond the walls of the church. They have been successful because they have discussed topics like, help me, I want to grow old. My addiction is hurting my relationship. Aborted but not forgotten. Living in an HIV/AIDS relationship. The hand that loves me is hurting me. So if you want to know their glory, you have to know their backstory. So get on board the McCain Train and listen to the Let's Stay Together Internet Talk Show.
Of Malcolm Williams and Great Faith, and you're listening to the Let's Stay Together Show.
Hello, this is Reverend Rick McCain, and I'm with my wife, author Brenda McCain, my baby, my girl, my boo, and this is the Let's Stay Together Show, and we are here and honored to be here with Terry Vaughn. And Terry, we are just so happy to have you here on the Let's Stay Together Show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Well, great. Tell us a little bit about your role in this movie, 72 Hours.
Dr. Ricky Dillon, and you're listening to Let's Stay Together radio show.
Hello, this is Reverend Rick McCain, and I'm here with my baby, my girl, my boo, author Brenda McCain from the Let's Stay Together show, and I love my wife. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, this is an actor that I love. Mr. Harry Lennox, it is so nice to see you, sir. Thank you for being on Let's Stay Together show.
Well, thank you, Rick. This is great, and I am honored to be with you and your beautiful wife.
Well, my question for this beautiful lady is she's very modest, and if I can give her a shout out to you, because I got approval for this business by girl. I'm taking it back to Levita from Steve Harvey, but I love all of her work and everything that she does. And she's a 3-time Emmy Award winner, so that's why I said she's modest, and I know you're going to bring to this movie the goodness that you brought to Debbie's little girl, because you was so good as a level-headed girlfriend that kept everything going.
She was mean.
She was level-headed. She was, but I love you.
Very
so
judgmental.
You don't do mean roles. I love you.
If you would like to advertise on the Let's Stay Together Talk Show or be a sponsor, contact us at letsstaytogethertalkshow.com and call 708-713-4958. Welcome back to the Let's Stay Together Talk Show. Your next stop, the McCain Train.
Now here's the Let's Stay Together Show with Reverend Ricardo McCain and author Brenda McCain, helping you to rebuild your relationships with God.
Hey, welcome back to the Let's Stay Together Show. We're talking about a homeless situation. Our topic today is, can you find love in a hopeless situation? Baby, go ahead with your questions and then what you wanted to talk about over there.
that call-in number.
Yeah, go ahead and get that call-in
Call
number.
in, people. 312-754-4333. I want to go back to soup kitchens and everything. That when I was doing my research, they were saying that most shelters and soup kitchens does not provide nutritious food. They provide food because homeless people don't care if it's nutritious or not. But just like First Lady was saying, if you want to eat healthy, don't you think they should be able to eat healthy because all of the other problems they have, at least give them that? And in the research, it was showing, no, they just give them a lot of canned food. The biggest time they eat is around Thanksgiving, Christmas, the holidays. They give them a nice spread, but sometimes that's not even healthy. But on a day-to-day basis, it's ship them in and get them out. You know, and I think that's kind of sad. And that's what I wanted to say regarding that. But I didn't know there was different types of homelessness. And when I was reading this, it just blew me away about chronic. I'm not even sure I can pronounce the last word. Homeless chronic, persons that are stereotype profile as Skid Row homeless, those professional ones. And I just remember growing up learning and seeing about, you know, the professionals on Skid Row. It didn't make sense to me. And then you had a transitional homelessness people and is it episodic homeless people? It's just so many because with the elderly, you wouldn't even think of it being that way. With the young people, I could sort of see them jumping from one thing to the next, especially a lot of college kids. They get out, and to me now, I couldn't do it, but I see it a lot of, and I do see it, people living in their cars.
Well, the episodic form of homelessness, it comes like, say, when you're a student or you're a child and you and your parents are just not getting along. They're wrong about everything, and you decide to leave home. You've just created an episode for yourself, you know what I'm saying, a situation for yourself that caused you to go into homelessness. And as a result of that. I
like your analogy. Okay, now. Okay.
You know, and as a result of that, now you're out there by yourself, which was my situation. I was too.
You just knew everything.
You know what I'm saying?
You can talk about it.
You know, that's what I can talk about. But the dangers of that is just, it's critical. I remember a story I heard. It was this guy in California. He was doing an interview, and he was just doing an interview on homelessness at a morgue. So he went through the morgue, and he was just looking at all of these drawers, and he saw Jane Doe 1 through hundreds, John Doe 1 through hundreds of numbers. And he said all of a sudden he just heard this, he just felt this wind, and he heard this voice saying, "These are my trophies." You know, and that's, you know, like when they're out homeless and they die in situations like that based on whatever situations they find themselves in, whether they're street workers or sexual slaves or whatever the case may be, or they just end up just being succumbed to the environment of being homeless. That's their death. And they died just not knowing anything, you know, or mom didn't know who they were, dad didn't know where they were. They're just gone, you know, and Satan looks at like, no, these are my trophies. I got them, you know. So we have to episodes, things that will happen in our lives, you know, that will cause us to be homeless.
And television doesn't help it. Disney, amen. But you got to watch them, too. ABC Family is far from family. I have it blocked on our television and our cable box, so they can't get to ABC Family because those programmings, they perpetuate that type of behavior. Get angry with your parents. Slip out the back door. Climb out the window. Run away. They'll look around, and they'll look for you. They'll be so grief-stricken when you come back. They'll give you whatever you ask for. No, they may never see you again.
Right.
They may never see you again. If the right person who's good at what he does or she is good at what she does come along and they get you to follow them, you're off to Bosnia. You're off to Taiwan. Now you're in a sex trade.
Or you're off to a strip club.
Yeah.
That's right.
Or even worse.
Right.
Yeah.
And now they're giving you drugs.
Right.
And you can't call home.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because you do have a lot of shows right now that perpetuate that situation where they're thinking that the child is always right and the parents are wrong. That's why I never liked Bart Simpson, you know, and these and now these Disney shows where the child is so intelligent that they're figuring things out themselves, and the parents don't know anything, and the children are so
communicating
smart.
with people on the internet, and they don't know if they're real adults
Right.
or if they're their age or adults.
Yeah.
And that's what's really frightening.
Yeah.
And so we have to really be aware. I show my children programming sometimes that causes them to have nightmares. But I want them to know how serious it is. And so one day on Investigation Discovery, a little girl is a cop's daughter, and she's on internet talking to a boy in California who's 16, and she's 14. Well, actually, he was 41 years old. He was in California, wife and 2 kids, came all the way to Alabama, kidnapped her, raped her, and murdered her. Right. And so, but the picture on the Facebook page, on the chat room, had this young surfer boy.
Right.
And so I wanted them to see this so we can kill that demon before it even gives birth to anything in our house.
Yeah.
That you don't communicate with people online that you don't know. Period. Full stop.
And a lot of times people want you to become homeless so they can prey on you as well. And so you have to be very careful when someone is saying, I want you to leave here. I can do this. It's a situation where you're actually leaving home and you're not a part of your house anymore, and that person wants you to be that way so they can control you. So we never look at the situation of homeless as sometimes someone is, as a predator that's pulling a person out of a home that's trying to cause them, a harmful situation as well. Baby, you got another question over there?
I want to piggyback on the shelters. Do you guys feel as though the shelters provide enough for a homeless person, or is it just a place to let them lay their head down and that's it, and then they usher them out at 6 a.m. in the morning?
It's a place for them to lay their head down, get a meal, and they usher them out. It costs about, I think annually it costs about $2,000 per person to take care of a homeless person.
A day?
No, a year.
Okay.
I think, yes.
Okay.
Because you talk about the food is not, it's not high grade or high standard food. It's not something that we're going to put on our plates and on our dinner tables.
Yeah.
And so it costs about $2,000 to a year to take care of a homeless person. When you look at it in that regard, that's not a lot of money. And so, but most of these shelters are ran off volunteers, and they don't have the resources because on top of feeding them, you also got to pay these things called lights. Right. And you got to pay the heat. I remember when we couldn't pay the heat at the Cup. So I got them off the street. We got electricity, but no heat. So they were glad to be inside. They were glad that food was coming. They were glad that the doctor was coming and they would get some new clothes. But we didn't have any heat. And so, though all of those things are take away from the resources, that overhead. And that's one of the things that we took into consideration when we created the Joseph Assignment Global Initiative, that we didn't want any overhead. And so Reverend Vines is the Vice President of Strategic Planning and Solutions, and he works for free. I'm the CEO and founder, and I work for free because we have a home among our – oh, you're funny. We have a home among our people. The Lord has been good to us, and we both know what it's like to not know where our next meal is coming from.
Tell us about the Joseph Assignment, though.
I'm sorry. I just had one question. When you're speaking of shelters, do you find that it's also difficult because working in housing, a lot of times people will come in and ask for housing, and I can only direct them to a shelter. But when families come in, it's difficult because everyone does not take men and women.
They sure don't. We have a list right here, and that gets very, very complicated. But to some degree, you understand why they don't, because you don't. When people are on the streets, you don't have background checks. And so when you have women coming in from domestic violence, and so that's an immediate homeless situation that you didn't know was going to happen. Yeah. And like our situation was, my mother and I, and so we were running out of the house because Daddy's about to kill her. And so we're running out the house, blood's flowing everywhere. But if she stays in, he's going to kill her.
Right.
And so you go away, you run with your children. Now you don't want your kids in an environment. And so that's why they keep it separate, because you don't know what the men are dealing with, what the women are dealing with, but they also bring children. Right. Now, but there's a community of people that get neglected, men with children. Mm-hmm. Homeless men with children is a community that gets neglected because where they say men only, they mean men only. And so if Daddy shows up with a little girl, we got a problem. So usually they end up in their car. Yeah. or they end up on the street
Wow.
because they can't bring the little girl.
I never knew it was layers like that.
Oh yes, ma'am. It's for safety reasons. It's for safety
But
reasons.
what does the father do that has a child like that? I mean, where can he go?
He's trying to make sure his family's not separated.
Yeah, but I mean, are there any shelters that allow